Hey guys, we're live. It's Landon here. I've got Matt with me, and we're having creation discussion two, stasis and pseudoscience. It'll just be me and him. We're going to be talking about. I have three topics planned for tonight. We're going to talk about standing for truth's last two debates, stasis and evolution being pseudoscience. Matt, but thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to say before we get started?
No, man, I'm excited. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, Standing for Truth, his last two debates, he had the one where he debated, what was his name, Joseph?
And Jim, yep.
Yeah, those were the two last ones. I think Standing won both of those pretty easily. I don't think either one of them were really well versed in biology necessarily. So I don't. I think Joseph was probably the most unprepared. I'm not. I'm not really like criticizing with a personal attack. I just don't think he was. He really knew that Standing was so prepared for the debate. Um, what did you think about that with debate specifically?
Uh, the the one with Joseph, the first guy was definitely
Yeah,
ready. Matter of fact, he didn't even have an opening. He he gave up all his time. He literally didn't use like 2 minutes of it. So that was really sad. The other guy, Jim, he came prepared, but he came with an inability to answer anything scientific and with uh, a topic of magic. So it was very odd. Very
yeah. I mean, I think that Jim, like he was trying to make a point, but he didn't really give any rebuttal to anything Standing really said, like any of his actual scientific claims. He just kind of just said that Standing was relying on magic, and that was kind of his argument. I think.
right.
I mean, but yeah, I think that even some of the atheists though in the chat for his debate with Joseph, they were criticizing Joseph for not being prepared. Like that RJ Downer, he was saying you need to be better prepared. I know Standing had said that RJ is one of the guys he continually tells other evolutionists they need to be prepared when they're going to debate. And I think that some of them they just kind of underestimate creationists overall, and I think that's kind of a problem that leads to them losing is they just don't expect creationists to have any argument. And I think that that's kind of. I don't think Jim did that as much, but I don't think he was as prepared as he could have been. I don't think he really gave a solid rebuttal to anything that Standing really said, besides just the usual response.
Yeah. Well,
So
he kept trying to turn it around on him. Remember, he didn't actually answer anything. He kept saying, "I'm not here to debate against evolution. I'm here to prove to you that you need evidence for creation." And then every time he would give him one, he would say, "Well, I don't know anything about that model." So, I mean, he wasn't the one that was prepared. That was the sad part. Um, that was very strange. It was a horrible debate.
yeah, I think he's better with like theological topics, maybe philosophy stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
don't think he's very well his experience with like debating evolution, creationism. But yeah, I did you hear the question I asked during the debate for
I lost you. You're just quiet. All right, everyone. We lost him for a minute. He cut out right after he asked if I heard what question he had asked. Um, I didn't. I don't remember the question. I would need him to repeat it for us. He'll be back in just a minute. If not, we will close this one down and reopen another one. Uh, he's got my number. He'll text me. Let's see. Jim was saying there's nothing and no discovery that exists that will convince Standing for Truth or no evidence. All right. Hello.
hear me?
There we go. You're back.
Okay, I was like, oh man, I was just oh gosh, I was like, oh man, not again. Did my mic cut out?
It did. It just totally cut out. You were gone.
Yeah, the computer froze up for a minute. I don't know what's going on with this. I don't know if it's the computer or what, but where did I leave off talking about the harvestman arachnids?
Oh, no, you literally just started saying, "Did you hear about my question?" And then boom,
Oh
go.
man, yeah. But I was saying that I asked this question to Joseph and Jim. It was about harvestman arachnids, and I was saying that they've allegedly been in stasis 400 million years. So how could have they been in stasis that long when a stable environment wouldn't have lasted that long? They would have had to change over time because if over that long, because they wouldn't have had a stable environment. That was basically what Jeremy was saying when I was chatting with him. And Joseph really didn't have an answer to it. He just basically said that he didn't know what I was talking about, and I don't know if he was pressed for time or what was going on, but he didn't really say anything, have much of an answer. I don't know. But Jim, they had an after show for the hangout, and he had said basically he was saying they would just gradually. Let me see if I can find his. Well, he was saying basically that they weren't actually in stasis and that they would just gradually adapt. But see, a lot of the, but I mean, when you have mass extinction events, they don't have time to gradually adapt.
Exactly.
So I mean, I don't. And they also said that I think that when they were doing the after show, they said that they called the harvestmen spiders. I mean, I'm going to give them a pass on that because I mean they might not have known what I was talking about, but harvestmen aren't spiders; they're different order of arachnids. And so I don't really think they had much of an answer. But R.J. Downer, he did admit though that the fossil record in the area for a lot of those like arthropods, he said they were sparse. So
Yeah.
I don't.
They have a lot of problem with the fossil record. You know what I mean? First of all,
Yeah,
they believe that meteors form the planet. Well, guess what? We don't find meteors down in the deep Earth anywhere. So that's a horrible problem considering Earth formed from meteors. You would find more meteors than you would fossils, and it's the exact opposite. Or my favorite one is take the volatile honeybee, right? We know that the temperatures slightly increased and we're losing bees worldwide, yet somehow this magical bee somehow survived through three bottlenecks, right? Because what was the last bottleneck? 125 to 200,000 years ago, right? That was a bottleneck. Oh, bees just fine. Get out of here. Bees can't survive anything. They're such a weak species. They would be gone in a bottleneck. Are you kidding me? It's so
yeah. Let me screen share. I'll try to play that clip for you.
good.
I'll clip okay. Yeah, share. Okay. Can you see where it says after show debate?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Let me find this spot. Hold on. Just trying to find the. Yeah, here it is. You hear the video?
No.
Can't hear it. Okay. Hmm. Not sure if I can enable that or not. Let me. Because I'm still pretty used to. I'm not very used to doing this. So.
Yeah, I hear you.
So let me see if I can.
I've never done it, so I always join something, and even that
Yeah.
faster half the time. Half the time, my camera doesn't work, or my audio sucks. Like with Kent Hovind, he couldn't even understand me. And then
Yeah.
they tried to invite me on the non sequitur show. They sent me a link, and it didn't work, so I had to download Skype to go on.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get the audio playing. I'm still, this is my second time doing this, but uh, they're basically his response was that they're not actually in stasis. I mean, I'll send you the link after the hangout, but I didn't really think they had much of an argument. I mean, they just I mean, one of the guys, he just made kind of a joke instead of having a rebuttal. He just said maybe they walked to a different environment.
So
I
rescue
just,
classes.
yeah, I mean, there wasn't really anything. I mean, I don't really think they had a good answer to the question. It's just kind of like how the question I had saying like how could I was talking about insect wings appearing abruptly in the fossil record, and I'm trying to remember what debate I asked that question in. It was a Standing for Truth debate with I'm not sure who it was with, but I don't think they really gave an answer for how insect wings appeared so abruptly. I mean, I also posted an article. I know Taylor Snake was right. He gave a bit of a rebuttal, but I don't really think there was a solid answer for why they appear so abruptly. But
Yeah, I heard Aaron Raw. He just says, "Well, we have transitional fossils of their wings, but you know what I mean. Anybody can line anything up, so it's
yeah,
not really evidence of anything. Because frankly, unless we can see it in an experiment, it's all theory, and we know for a fact that nobody's ever done anything in these experiments. So why?
yeah. I mean, and you know, getting back to the point of stasis, like I mean, that's pretty much I would say more common than people. You know, it's probably the most common thing in the fossil record. Like even like the Linsky bacteria experiment has just it's shown stasis and a little bit of variation. I mean, you see that in like horseshoe crabs, harvestman spiders. There's just numerous examples of stasis where they don't really. I mean, there's some variation, but they don't change beyond what you'd expect to if the biblical definition of kinds was correct. And
Right.
that's one thing that they haven't really given a solid answer to. Let me look for this article about. There's this article that called "Stasis: Life Goes On, but Evolution Does Not Happen." This was posted in the Evolution news site, and the author gives so many examples of stasis, like all the way back to. I mean, I think it was an older creationist that wrote this, but I mean, it's still a good read because it's got and there's some good quotes in there. Let's see, one of the
Have you seen my book? You know, have you seen how much stasis I have in that book? Like 300 pages.
I haven't seen actually. I saw the book. Is it the one that you and Standing wrote,
That's
or is
right.
it? Yeah, I haven't actually like looked into the book, but I saw where it was on. Was it on Amazon?
Yeah, here's the link.
Yeah,
I'll give you the free one. It was intended to be free to everybody, but unfortunately, Amazon has a minimum charge. There's
yeah.
a link there, and here's the link for anybody watching.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I think Amazon is just like that. They want some of the profit, I guess.
yeah, they do.
But yeah, article on stasis said evolutionary biologist Donald Prothero admits, he says, in four of the biggest climatic vegetational events of the last 50 million years, the mammals and birds show no noticeable change in response to changing climates. No matter how many presentations I give where I show these data, no one, including myself, has a good explanation for such widespread stasis despite the obvious selective pressures of changing climate. He also said the first major discovery was that stasis was much more prevalent in the fossil record than had been previously supposed. Many paleontologists came forward and pointed out that the geological literature was one vast monument to stasis, with few cases where anyone observed gradual evolution. I'm going to I'll send you a link to that article so you can read some of it later.
I asked Standing for Truth for that that link about that one multiple,
Yeah,
but I just stopped asking. He kept forgetting.
uh, yeah. I'll post it in the chat too, so everybody can see it.
Perfect. I'll have
Yes, yeah, but yeah, I just think that see, that's why they kind of had to develop the punctuated equilibrium because there's so many examples of stasis,
yeah.
and that led. I mentioned this in my debate with Taylor. She's evolutionary biologist Lynn Margulis. She was not a neo-Darwinist. She was saying that basically you just see a lot of back and forth variation in the fossil record, and then abruptly just new species emerge, and there's a little bit of variation, but then you just get stasis. And he was very outspoken on that, and I think she's right. I mean, you don't really. I mean, you see basically what you would expect to see. I know she wasn't a creationist, but I mean, you see what you would expect to see if the Bible was correct. Like you see groups, animal groups, and orders start out and they diversify a little bit, but they stay within the same kind, and you just get stasis.
Right.
So I mean, that's basically. I even posted. I was talking about how one guy talked about how the fossil record shows top-down evolution, where you have like it would be like the general kinds, and they diversify a little bit, and then there's just stasis. I think that's basically what part of his point was. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I use that with my debate with Snake was right. Also, let me I'll read that real quick since I know we're going to talk about stasis. Top down. Let's see. I think I've. Let me see. Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, it was the author was Jonathan Wells, and he was talking about this paleontologist he met from China, and he said, let me find this quote. Yes, it's Chin called this top-down evolution to contrast it with the bottom-up evolution required by Darwin's theory. Let's see. Afterwards, scientists in the audience asked him a lot of questions. Let me look here. Let's see. Yeah, he said he described many of the King Yang fossils and argued that their abrupt appearance in the early Cambrian was a problem for Darwinian evolution. Darwin's theory predicts that minor taxonomical differences, such as species and genera, gradually evolve into larger differences, such as classes and phyla, whereas the fossils show that the phyla in many classes appeared first and then diversify into a variety of genera and species.
Nice.
So, yeah, so that's basically confirming. I mean, what creationists have been saying for so long. I mean, is that it's just the Darwin's theory is not representative of the evidence. Basically, I mean, besides just natural selection having a limited power, I mean, you don't really see all this gradualism that Darwin expected.
Right. And what we talk about on our channel all the time is that we just see degradation in things. And I can even, I think I can. I've never done really a screen share. I think it's the blue. No, there it is. Screen share. What is this? Yeah, enter. What the heck? So,
Okay, I
yeah.
think it's showing it. I think.
Oh, good. So, yeah, here's an example. I guess you can see half my, or no, I guess you see my full screen. I'll make it larger then, since you can.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Yeah,
So,
I think.
here's dragonflies, 2-foot wingspan, and here they are today. You can hold one in your finger, and then here's a cat of today. Here's a cat in the past, huge. We have lots of examples from bears. Here's an example of a human standing next to the old bears in the museums. Massive creatures. And then today, there they are. Nothing special. Just degradation. Here's a sloth. You can hold one now. Here's another sloth when they were 6,000 pounds. Huge. Anyway,
Yeah.
the book is just full of examples. How in the world did these things form? And now all of a sudden we have them today and they're just inferior. Doesn't make much sense,
Yeah, I mean, it's completely the opposite of what you would expect. It's, but hold on, I think Standing was messaging me about. I don't know if he wants to join or I don't know
Yeah,
if he's.
I got a message as well saying he wanted to. He asked if it was going on. I just replied in the text.
Yeah, I don't know if he's. Yeah, I'm trying to see if he's. Well, I guess we can just wait and see what he says. I don't know if he, but yeah, it's just yeah. I use the dragonfly example. How like basically they just. I mean, they were massive in the past, and now they're just so much smaller. I mean, if anything, it is like almost devolution because I mean, and that's just one example. You also got the glyptodonts, which is like the giant armadillos, and they were about the size. They varied in size, but like some of them were about the size of a car, maybe. And they were basically a family of armadillos, and now you just have the smaller armadillos. So you just got several different examples of that.
Right.
But
That's what's on my screen right now, actually. The 2,000-pound armadillo, and then now a guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
are you screen sharing?
Oh, you don't see it?
Oh yeah, I see it. I just didn't know if you were screen sharing for everybody to see. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see it now. Sorry, but yeah, I mean that's kind of what I've used that example for several years now. There's a paper in college that I wrote about was going over about how the glyptodon armadillo. I mean there are some differences between them. It shows that there is a decent amount of variation between kinds, especially like in their bone structure. And I said that like there's the variation of kinds kind of depends on the kind. That was kind of my point. Like some kinds there's more variation possibly. Some kinds there's not as much, but that's just my take on it. But
Right.
um, yeah. Um, do you want to talk about evolution being pseudoscience? That's the third thing we have planned.
Yeah, let's do it. That'll be a fun one.
Yeah. Let me go to I'm gonna screen share and go to Wikipedia. Let me go over. Hold on. Was there something else you want to show or
No, I was just
oh
going
okay.
through the list of all the different things I have. I would just continue to screen share because it's better than staring at me sitting in a chair. So
Oh, okay. All right. Well I'll go ahead and screen share. Let me okay, let me see. Can you see what I'm can you see where it says pseudoscience?
yes.
Okay. This is kind of one thing I talked about this in another video that Standing had made, but I didn't really go into it in depth. Um, I was talking about the especially like neo-Darwinism, the modern evolutionary synthesis, and this whole kind of like dogma it has a lot of traits of pseudoscience, and kind of want to talk about this one by one because there's so many things that we'll start off with use of vague. These are indicators of the possible presence of pseudoscience, and use of vague, exaggerated, or untestable claims is the first one. And I think that's really a big one because there's so many times they just kind of invent just those stories that can't really be tested. And this is kind of the like let's see. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I make sure my mic's not messing up. Like I remember in evolutionary, where I had a class on biopsychology because my major was psychology, and my professor was going over evolutionary psychology, and he was saying that he was reminding a class because there's so many like post hoc just those stories they throw around like, well, how did this trait evolve? What led to this trait evolving? And he was basically saying that this is speculative and we can't go back and see exactly how everything unfolded. And basically, evolution in their storytelling, they do basically the same thing. I mean, they kind of make you guess, but I mean, there's no like what says right here assertion of scientific claims that are vague rather than precise and that lack specific measurements, and assertions of claim with little or no explanatory power. And basically, that's kind of what they do. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, I completely agree. Matter of fact, every time we try to like talk to them about something, they have to use a rescuing device because they don't actually have evidence to even defend themselves. For example, mitochondrial Eve. When we say, "Did you know that we descend from a single female?" Exactly like the Bible says, they have to say, "Well, sure, okay, yeah, but there were other females. They just didn't have kids," or some other ridiculous speculatory thing. Just like you said, pseudoscience.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, another thing is that, like, they don't have really, like, a lot of these theories, like, especially in physics, and they have, like, a mathematical basis to test the theory against. And with evolution, they don't really have much to go on. It's just kind of, I mean, is key than other theories. I mean, just even if you were an evolutionist, that's I mean, I would if I was, I would still admit that. Like it says, failure to make use of operational definitions.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. A lot of these are kind of just saying the same thing. I'll just skip the the second one. Over reliance on confirmation rather than refutation, and that's basically they're looking to confirm the theory more than trying to find ways to test the theory. I think is what you could say. Like assertions that do not allow the logical possibility that they can be shown to be false by observation or physical experiment, like falsifiability. Like, I mean, I have never gotten really a decent answer for how evolution could be falsified because there's not really, I mean, they could just make up any rescue device they want, really.
They do. Matter of fact,
I
that's the
mean,
most common theme of all. You say, well, look, that hasn't evolved. They go, that's stasis. Well, that one has adapted. And they go, yeah, that's proof of evolution. Well, how come it de-evolved? Well, it went blind because it helped it hear better. It's like, oh, I see. Okay, so there's always a rescuing device. So if it's unfalsifiable, it's not science.
yeah, there's just no, and they say like, one of the ways I say you can allegedly falsify evolution is finding a rabbit in the Cambrian.
Yeah, yeah. Yet
But
I've shown them multiple things out of place in that fossil record, like, for example, a Neanderthal with chainmail armor. How about that? You think that would convince them? No. How about the fact that we have parrots before dinosaurs? No, that doesn't do anything either. I mean, we can literally show multiple things out of area, but they want to find the rabbit, the single rabbit.
yeah, and I mean, I've always said though that like creationists, even if you're older creationist, younger creationist, we wouldn't expect to find a rabbit in the Cambrian because rabbits don't live in the ocean. I think it
Right.
was Neff or somebody that said something like that, another hangout. But I mean, it just doesn't really. I mean, no one expects to find a rabbit there. So I mean, I don't know why they
They,
just kind of
oh man, that's all.
yeah. And
They
that's
want,
basically what it is.
yeah, they want to make an impossible task and then have you try to make yourself look stupid trying to explain it. But just like it was Neff is talking about tonight, he's talking about how the flood is there's no layer for flood. The flood caused all the layers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, basically, it is a straw man, like you're saying. I mean, I've explained that in that same paper that I wrote in college. It's not really. I mean, there's just not really a way for them to say, okay, well, this is how scientifically evolution can be falsified. I mean, there's no matter what the evidence shows, they have an explanation. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll
But
go. I'll go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say, yeah, but when we've have falsified it, when we've shown conclusively that something it does not line up with evolution, like for example, take the human brain. They say that man evolved a bigger brain from eating meat. Well, guess what? Ketones don't replace glucose. The human body requires glucose to run the brain because that's the main element because we're carbivores. That's why our saliva produces amylase. So we need to break down carbohydrates. That's our main fuels function. So what happened in studies when they started giving animals cooked food in the Pottinger cat study, they actually found that the animals did absolutely horrible. Matter of fact, they started dying. Now it's against the law to actually give animals cooked food in these places because of how unhealthy it actually makes them. The only studies that ever proved that animals grew bigger brain were when they ate fruit. So we know that meat has the exact opposite effect. Meat is a class 1 carcinogen worldwide. No matter where you go, it is a known cancer causer. So now all of a sudden they're going to say that this known disease-causing food is going to make your brain better and bigger. I don't think so, man. So we have conclusive evidence to prove the exact opposite of what they tell us, but yet here they go, just storytelling, saying, well, it must have been true because we're talking to each other, right? So to them, they know that the number 3 exists, so they just say, well, there's got to be numbers before that made number 3 exist, rather than just looking at the obvious, going, well, what are you talking about? We see evidence of something, and we know that nothing exploding doesn't create all this madness. And then they say, well, man probably grunted language into existence. It was a slow process. They didn't just get a bigger brain overnight. Well, the biggest problem with that is the linguistic masters of our time, Dr. Eric Lindbergh and Suzanne Cuttress, who've been studying human language forever, found that nobody over the age of 13 can ever form human language. It's physically impossible. They never can learn abstract thought. So we know for a fact that evolution could have, or language could have never been grunted into existence. So they, again, science proves them wrong, but they ignore it down the line. So they ignore falsification, which makes it pseudoscience.
Well, see, that's a good point. I mean, it's amazing though. It amazes me just how quickly like toddlers pick up language. I mean, it's just so natural. I mean, it's just tons of information they pick up just instantaneously.
Right.
I mean, and it's just I mean, it's just something that they're going to have a hard time explaining how this gradually evolved. I mean, when it's just so innate in people to just pick up on this so quickly. Like they're even shown like that children. I think this gets harder the older you get, but children are able to learn multiple languages when they're younger because they're just intaking all this information because that's what they're supposed to do. I mean, this is just the natural way of how they develop is that they keep bringing in this information and this knowledge of language is innate. It's in them genetically, and that's how they can learn several languages easier when they're younger.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's one area that like developmental psychology. It's really interesting to me. That's what if I ever go back to school to get, that's probably what I'll go do in is developmental psychology because it's really interesting to me. But yeah, we'll move on to let's see. The second one is assertions of claims that a theory predicts something that has not been shown to predict. I guess you could say that for evolution in general. Let's see. Some of these don't match it as well. Over reliance on testimonial, anecdotal evidence, or personal experience. That's not really, it's somewhat, but this is a good one. Lack of openness to testing by other experts. It's where like this kind of relates to some of the other ones down below, but it's just this hostility towards anyone who dares question them. They don't want to have their theory tested. It's just this dogmatic view they have. What do you think about that?
Well, evolution theory is the only scientific theory that exists that's protected by law. That should tell you something about it right there. It was invented by somebody paid to go out and look and observe and create a theory that cannot be falsified. And that's exactly what they did. So they had a plan, they succeeded, and they always protect their asset. And that's why schools don't offer another option. If you were to take your book and you were to write down an answer that's not in your book, you're going to fail. That's indoctrination because they're telling you what they believe is right. Even though those science textbooks 10 years ago were in the trash today, it was right back then, but yet today it's wrong. So they can fail all the time and be miserable because to them, science always has the answers. We'll figure it out eventually. That's the biggest problem I have. Unfalsifiable, makes no logical sense. It has rescuing devices for everything, can't be tested or repeated. It fails down the line. So
yeah, I mean, they even attack. I mean, it's not just creationists. I mean, you know who Michael Denton is. He's the one who wrote "Evolution is a Theory in Crisis" and "Evolution Still a Theory in Crisis."
Yeah,
he's agnostic, and he believes in structuralism, which is basically, I mean, he's not by any means a creationist. He believes that all life is descended from universal common descent. But he believes that like the natural order of things is kind of like designed in a way so that like vertebrates would be present in on other planets too, because that's just how the laws of nature are designed for things to arise multiple times. Like there's some purpose and order in the universe. Basically, is his view. And I was looking at like the National Center for Science Education, which is very biased, and they were attacking some old articles. They're attacking him, calling him a creationist. And he's not even. I mean, he's not a creationist. I mean, it's just any. Also, that Lynn Margulis, she was the other like it was Jerry Coyne was attacking her. I mean, and these are not creationists. These are other scientists that have differing views, and they cannot allow that. It's basically just groupthink. I mean, and they will not stand for it.
Right. Well, Eugene McCarthy as well. He invented the pig mating with the ape theory, and he gets a lot of flack. And he's a geneticist. He's the one that found that pigs match humans more genetically than primates do, and that's why our skin is like this. That's why we have hair instead of like fur. You know, his theory just seemed to go off more genetics because that was his specialty, and he takes all kinds of flack. Then there's the theory that we evolved from the ocean. Then there's life from volcanic eruptions. You know, the alien theory,
Yeah,
panspermia, the gene first theory of RNA world, the aquatic ape theory. Life began in the oceans and life began under the ice. There's so many different theories, but only evolution is allowed. That's the problem. They
yeah. I
don't
mean,
challenge.
yeah. I mean, they will if they will rely on one of those theories instead of just admitting that maybe some supernatural deity, aka God, did it. Like Richard Dawkins in the Expelled documentary, he said that well, maybe there's a chance that we'll find out that aliens were responsible and that they seeded life on Earth. And I mean, they try to say that he didn't suggest that, but he did suggest it. I mean, you can watch it. It's available on YouTube, so I don't know why they deny it, but
They'll deny anything that goes against what they're talking about. They hate it.
and he yeah, but that was basically his thing was that well, maybe aliens are responsible. So but I there yeah, you can just find it on YouTube. It's kind of ridiculous of the links they'll go to try to even avoid the suggestion that God might have been involved. I mean, there is a clear and obvious bias with a lot of these people. I mean, even if they like the National Center for Science Education, like that Eugenie Scott, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I don't know that name.
She was she tried she was like the leader for let me go to my yeah, so she's an American physical anthropologist, former university professor, educator, has been active in opposing the teaching of young Earth creationism, and intelligent design in schools. I think she was, yeah, National Center for Science Education. She was the director, but she had debated like Stephen Meyer, and she's tried to make herself out to be like she's not like her and like the organization are not biased, but if you just read the things they say, there is a very obvious bias. Yeah, I think she's kind of retired now, but that was just the name that came to mind. So, yeah, is I was looking into them just to try to, just to see how biased they were the other day, and I mean it's pretty surprising. I mean, it's not written from a neutral point of view, so.
No doubt.
But let's see, lack of openness. We already did that. Absence of progress. That's kind of another thing. It's this failure to progress towards additional evidence of its claims. Um, I mean, yeah. I mean, there's really nowhere. I mean, evolution hasn't really progressed much. I mean, if anything, like they've had the field of like evolutionary biology, like they discovered epigenetics, and like a lot of other mechanisms, but those kind of get ignored in favor of just people saying, well, let's just stick with neo-Darwinism and random mutation plus natural selection equals everything. So I mean that kind of fits it in a way
Right.
because I mean there's not really I don't
Random.
really
I
go
love
ahead.
how it's random. There's no such thing. They have no evidence that anything is random ever. They never have. And don't you like how it can be both things that are self-contradictory? It can be trajectory based because that's what natural selection is. It's survival of the fittest, but yet it's random at the same time. You can't have random and natural and survival of the fittest. They're oxymorons. You can't have something randomly evolving while at the same time natural selection. It's like saying I'm going to go stand in the sun, but random selection is maybe will let me tan. What are you talking about? Of course you're going to tan, or you're going to die, or you're going to get. You know what I mean? It's self-contradictory.
Yeah,
but yet they tell you that both happen at the same time. Ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. It's an oxymoron.
By the way, Standing wanted to ask if you. He said he's free in about 15 minutes. He said that's 10 minutes ago, and he wanted to know if we wanted to join him in a hangout on his channel or if he should come here.
Um, I mean, if he wants to come on here, I mean, and we can just finish up here and join him on another video.
Okay, I could
I
tell
mean,
him over there.
yeah, I mean, we can just cover this last little bit for like 5 or some more minutes that we can just finish up.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. So you want me to just go ahead and keep going over this, or
Yeah, go ahead.
okay? Yeah, like lack of self correction. That's kind of another thing. Like they don't really listen to any of the newer evidence that comes about. This is another one that relates to what I was saying before, the personalization of issues. This is really a big one. It says tight social groups and authoritarian personalities, suppression of dissent, and groupthink can enhance the adoption of beliefs that have no rational basis. So, I mean, like what I was saying earlier with Michael Denton, it's just like no matter, I mean, even if what they're presenting is completely scientific, I mean, there's nothing really controversial about it. I mean, they still get attacked. I mean, just the same as creationists do. I mean, and these people need to realize, though. I mean, especially within like maybe the past few decades or so, there's been this myth, cultural myth, that's arisen that if you oppose consensus, you're anti-science. When science has, throughout history, the greatest minds like Isaac Newton, Pasteur, whoever, they broke from the consensus. That's what led them to discovering new things, coming up with new theories. I mean, people need to realize, especially, I mean, they don't need to buy into this myth that that consensus is science. And I think that like these tight social groups that's talking about really contribute to that myth that if you have any alternative views, then you are being anti-science, and I think that's problematic.
Oh,
So,
I agree. I mean, that's what
um,
communism is you don't agree with what your neighbor's saying, so you stifle them and call them, make fun of them, call them names, right? It's they appeal to the majority and then uh, call any like make fun of them just for you know them being a minority. It makes no sense because they at the same time they're being the sheep. We're trying to help them out. We're here to show them that your experiments aren't what they say. They don't prove anything. So, and then they get mad at us for it. Like we're exposing the liar to them and they're mad and defending the ones that lied to them. That's how I see it. It's very offensive.
yeah, that's true. There's also this one's really the assertion of claims of conspiracy. That's not as much, but this one's really big on it. Attacking the motives or character of anyone who dares question the claims. And this is what you see a lot. You just see people saying that we're just trying to indoctrinate people. The creationists are just trying to peddle pseudoscience. They're just making things up. And see, like another thing is like they always accuse creationists of lying, but like what will we gain by just lying about this? I mean, why would we just have this conspiracy where we're just trying to just deliberately fool people? I mean, I don't understand why they would say that. I mean, they act like there's this big conspiracy that we're trying to just lie to people and just present misinformation willingly. I mean,
Yeah. What do we have to
no,
gain from it? Nothing.
yeah,
Matter of fact, we're hated for what we do. So it's the exact opposite. I could understand if it would make us really cool and people would be like, wow, look at that. They're just doing that for trolling and they want to get views and they're for fame. The exact opposite happens to us. We get ridiculed, made fun of, nothing beneficial. There's no money in it. The exact opposite. So we're here to help them and we take the flack. You see the problem?
yeah. I mean, I agree. That's just another problem with it. Use of misleading language, creating scientific sounding terms to persuade non-experts to believe statements that may be false or meaningless. That's not really as much. But I mean, they do tend to mislead people on how much their evidence there is for evolution. I guess evidence for their position. They just kind of. I mean, it's a combination. This one's kind of a combination of all the other ones. They just kind of the misdirection, misleading. That's basically, it does tie into everything else. So
Yeah, well, they use each other. They use each other's fields. I'm sorry, not each other. They use each other's fields to back each other up. For example, they'll say, okay, well, geneticists will prove mitochondrial Eve, and they'll say, okay, look, we found the mtDNA sequence and we've tracked it to one woman, and then rather than saying let's figure out how old she is, they just go to the fossil record, right? And they'll say, okay, well, let's say we presume that humans evolved from the common ancestor around this time, and so they use that date. Like, they don't investigate any further. It's like they did their part. Now let the other scientists do theirs on that section. It's kind of ridiculous, because that's why they always get conjoining theories, because they're using other models from other aspects called consilence. And then they say, see the validity? It's proven by every field of science. It's like, no, you just took their information and used it for yours, and now you're claiming that it's proof. That's not how this works. You're supposed to test, and the observable tests prove our model, not yours. So
yeah, I mean, I agree. I was looking at this. I just this is I think article I've gone back to for a while. It's from an atheist website called the Skeptics Dictionary, and it's called Pseudoscience. And this is meant to mock creationism. And I know somebody on creation.com did an article going over this and they talked about how evolution meets like 9 out of the 10 traits of pseudoscience. And this is one. This statement really sums up basically my point. It says some pseudoscientific ideas can't be tested because they are so vague and malleable that anything relevant can be shoehorned to fit the claim. And basically, that's evolution in a nutshell. Is that, I mean, there's nothing that can disprove or falsify it. I mean, there's always going to be a rescue device. I mean, you can't really test it because it's so vague. I mean, there's just no way for it to be reliably tested. So, I mean, that's basically my concluding remark on that. I mean, it basically just sums up everything we've been talking about.
right. Evolution explains why the flat worm is flat, why the round worm is round. It explains up, down, left, right, in, out, up, down. That's not a theory. It's just ridiculous. It's unfalsifiable and it's unprovable. So how is that science? It just doesn't even make sense. Science is supposed to try to disprove a theory constantly. They don't try to disprove evolution ever, ever. They're trying to prove evolution, the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do in science. That's why it's pseudo. It's like saying, I invented a cure for cancer. Oh, we should test it on people with cancer. Why? Why would we do that? That's a horrible idea. That's what they
Yeah.
do with evolution. It's totally contradictory.
Well, see, and then I remember I was talking to one of my friends on Facebook at one point. I was saying that I've heard this several times. I don't know if you have, but they say, like, these atheists or evolutionists, they'll say, well, scientists love having their theories disproven. Why don't you present the evidence to them and falsify evolution? But I mean, obviously, though, they don't want to have their theory disproven because they're so defensive. I mean, the minute anyone tries to dissent from the group, I mean, they throw a fit about it. I mean, obviously, they're very. I mean, I understand that, human nature. You don't want your ideas to be disproven, really. But I mean, science. If that's what science is about, I mean, they should just be as open to it, their theories being disproven as they claim.
Well,
And
their
stop.
gravity goes away if you refuse.
Yeah,
Well, wherever, just follow the money, follow the trail, and you'll see like why they don't want to be falsified, because they need that money coming in. You can only get it from government, so they can't say the government's wrong. So they're
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the case. I mean, I'm sure that's has a lot to do with it, but that that last remark though pretty much was summing up the all I had to say. We pretty much covered standings, debates, stasis, and evolution being pseudoscience. So I guess in a few minutes we can just go ahead and go on his channel. I know he probably has some stuff he wants to talk about, but is there anything like closing remarks you want to make or?
no, nothing, man. I was just gonna talk about whatever you wanted to, so that was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but thanks for watching, everybody. I plan on having maybe another video at some point. Maybe Standing for Truth will come on. I might get Jeremy or maybe Matt again. I guess we'll just see what happens. But thanks for watching. So we'll see you next time. Bye.
Later.